Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's Dr. Uzma Shehzad, and today we are going to discuss an important topic of urogynecology, which is urinary incontinence. First of all, what the urinary incontinence is? It is involuntary loss of urine, which is social and a hygienic problem and is objectively demonstrable. Regarding its type, it can be genuine stress incontinence, it can be detrusor instability or overflow incontinence. Its incidence is 7% in women from 15 to 64 years of age and occurs in up to 12% of the women over 65 years. First of all, we will describe what the genuine stress incontinence is. It is the involuntary loss of urine where the intravesical pressure exceeds the maximum urethral closure pressure. In the absence of detrusor contraction, it is the commonest cause of urethral incontinence and is responsible for 40 to 60% of the cases. Here the patient presents with involuntary loss of urine that occurs with some activities like changing posture or by increasing intra-abdominal pressure by cough or sneezing, and this might be associated with coexisting uterovaginal prolapse, and the etiology is related to multiparity with obstetric trauma or difficult deliveries with later development of uterovaginal prolapse, and may get aggravated with the atrophic changes that occur in the urogenital tract with menopause, and history of previous bladder neck surgery may be a risk factor for later development of urinary incontinence. The second type is detrusor instability. Here abnormal contraction of detrusor muscle is responsible for this incontinence, and this is the second commonest cause and is seen in 30 to 60% of the patients who are complaining of incontinence. Here patient presents with a symptom complex with urgency, urge incontinence, enuresis, nocturia and frequency of urine. Specific clinical features except when it is caused by multiple sclerosis is where the case examination will reveal central nervous system with certain deficits in patients who are having multiple sclerosis. This detrusor instability, it can be idiopathic, it may be related to multiple sclerosis and sometimes is associated with failed incontinence surgery. Third type of incontinence that occurs in patients is overflow incontinence. Here the bladder distension occurs in the absence of detrusor activity, and the patient is in habit of voiding small volumes of urine at frequent intervals and sometimes having a constant dribbling of urine. Examination reveals that the bladder is full. This is caused by certain upper and lower motor neuron lesions and certain drugs like ganglion blockers, anticholinergic drugs, beta adrenergic stimulants and tricyclic antidepressants. They are responsible for overflowing incontinence with denervation or change in the nerve supply of urinary bladder. Epidural anesthesia is also responsible for reducing the bladder sensation and responsible for overflow incontinence. Surgery of anterior vaginal wall and certain pelvic masses, they are the cause of overflow incontinence, and inflammation of urethra, vulva or vagina, it may be a cause in such cases. The different types of stress incontinence, they need to be managed in different ways. For this we have to focus on the chief complaints. In patients who are coming with stress incontinence, their main complaints are urgency, frequency and nocturia and enuresis. And here cystometry is showing indirect diagnosis, normal cystometry, and diagnosis is based on exclusion of detrusor instability, and the surgery is the mainstay of treatment with the correction of cystocele and so on, and medical treatment sometimes is helpful in the form of estrogen and androgens. Vaginal cones may be used or electrical stimulation may be used. In cases of detrusor instability, cystometry is showing certain changes with early first sensation to void, reduced bladder capacity and detrusor pressure of over 15 centimeters of water during bladder filling, cough or change of posture. Here medical treatment is the first choice, and we can use certain drugs which we will discuss later, and bladder drilling can be used in such cases. Surgery is rarely required with bladder transection or clamp ileocystoplasty in certain selected cases. Third type, which is overflow incontinence. Here the patient comes with dribbling off and on and small amounts voided at frequent intervals, and delayed first sensation to void is seen at cystometry with large bladder capacity and unusually flat detrusor trays. And the cholinergic drugs are helpful in management of such cases. And the other steps that we can take are urethral dilatation, ureterostomy, and intermittent self-catheterization. First of all, when a patient comes to us with dribbling of urine or urinary incontinence, we have to inquire into symptoms and to rule out urinary tract infection, and we have to rule out certain bladder stones and any change in the habits like excessive use of water or caffeine or sleep disturbances. They may be some of the causes for urinary symptoms. We have to rule out these. And in case of female patients, our female patients, we have to take their obstetric history and inquire about any difficult labor, obstetric trauma or use of forceps or so on. And patient is asked about different gynecological problems like she is having any uterovaginal prolapse or fibroid uterus that was associated with genuine stress incontinence and later with frequency. And history of pelvic surgery or failed incontinence surgery has to be taken. Any history of systemic disorders like diabetes mellitus and multiple sclerosis has to be inquired. And drug history is to be taken, and history of smoking is taken. Examination sometimes reveals no abnormality, but in cases of multiple sclerosis, neurological deficits may be elicited, and local examination may reveal excoriation, which is resulting from constant dribbling of urine and skin involvement. And sometimes urological studies may reveal ectopic ureter, and local examination may reveal uterovaginal prolapse. And starting with investigations, the first investigation we have to perform is midstream urine specimen for culture sensitivity. It's performed in every woman who is complaining of urinary incontinence, as UTI is one of the sole causes that may be responsible for all the urinary symptoms. And in case we found some urinary tract infection, it has to be treated. And because urodynamic studies are often painful in such patients, and so we have to treat the UTI first and then go for further investigations and treatment. Patient is asked to maintain a urinary diary about the amount of fluid intake and the frequency of micturition, drinking habits and voiding habits. They all have to be recorded on a diary which is maintained by the patient at home. And then we can perform pad test. Patient is given 500 ml of water, and pre-weighed perineal pads are used for this purpose. And patients, they should be performing their normal household activities and a series of exercises like knee bending and so on. And then we can reweigh the pad and give some information about the amount of incontinence. And then urodynamic studies can be performed in these patients that will give us certain information about the type of the incontinence. Cystometry is performed in these patients, and we should be aware of the normal findings in patients where we are performing cystometry. Normally the residual urine volume is less than 50 ml. First sensation of desire to void starts at 150 to 250 ml, while full bladder capacity is from 400 to 600 ml. Maximum intravesical pressure or detrusor pressure is less than 15 centimeters of water, and these are all normal findings in a normal patient who is not having any micturition problems. This graph is showing cystometry, its flow rate and all the values in a normal patient. In cases of detrusor instability, the changes that occur in cystometry findings are: there is early first sensation to void, bladder capacity is reduced, and detrusor pressure exceeds 15 centimeters of water during cuffing, posture change or catheter withdrawal. In cases of overflow incontinence, there is a delayed first sensation of desire to void, bladder capacity is increased, and there is unusually a flat detrusor pressure trace. Other tests which we can perform are video cystourethropy and other urodynamic tests include urethral pressure profilometry, cystourethropy, intravenous ureterography and ultrasound and MRI. These all can be performed to reach a diagnosis. And then starting with the treatment in patients who are having genuine stress incontinence, if the patients they are not going for surgery or they are not fit for surgery, the non-surgical methods that can improve the stress incontinence, they include the use of weighted vaginal cones, and these vaginal cones they weigh from 20 to 100 grams and their success rate is 70%. Maximum electrical stimulation can be used where a variable current is passed through vagina. 20 minutes daily for 1 month will be helpful in such cases. And drug therapy is sometimes used that include local use of vaginal creams, estrogen creams and alpha adrenergic stimulants. Surgical treatment which is used for stress incontinence is basically aimed to elevate the bladder neck and proximal urethra. The procedures which we perform are anterior colporrhaphy or cystocele repair with Kelly suture. It is giving us a success rate of 50%. Bithium beam fibrin implants measuring 16 to 21 mm. They can be implanted under the urethra to elevate and to correct the junction or angle between the urethra and the urinary bladder. Here the success rate seen is 93%. Different abdominal procedures which we can perform in patients of stress incontinence include Marshall-McCarthy Krantz procedure. Here the bladder neck is sutured to periosteum of the pubic bone and success rate is from 70 to 97%. Modified Birch-Colpo suspension. Here the 4 pairs of sutures are inserted on both sides paravaginal tissue at the level of the bladder neck and they are then attached to ipsilateral iliopectineal ligament. Here the success rate is 96% and the complications can occur like intraoperative hemorrhage, post-operative urinary retention and detrusor instability. And then combined vaginal and abdominal procedures can be performed that includes sting operation and Stamets procedure. The second type of incontinence which is due to detrusor instability, here the mainstay of treatment is using certain drugs and that will re-establish the central control or peripheral innervation of the urinary bladder. For this, different steps that can be taken include bladder drilling. Drug therapy can be used for this purpose and different groups of drugs are helpful in these patients. These include drugs which are inhibiting the bladder contraction. These include anticholinergic drugs, musculotropic relaxants, calcium channel blockers and tricyclic antidepressants. And drugs which increase the outlet resistance of urinary bladder, they include alpha adrenergic stimulants and locally acting drugs like estrogen creams. They increase the health of the local tissues and certain drugs which are decreasing the urine production that include synthetic vasopressin. They are helpful in such patients and the surgery that can be used in such patients, they include the bladder transection or ileocystoplasty. And the third type of incontinence which is overflow incontinence, here the treatment depends upon the cause. We have to remove the cause after investigating and reaching a diagnosis. And for hypotonic detrusor we can use Bethanecol 25 ml 3 times a day can be instilled and outflow obstruction is treated by urethral dilatation. and sometimes urethrotomy or intermittent catheterization is required in such patients. This completes our discussion about all types of urinary incontinence, and in our next lecture we will be continuing with other topics. Thank you very much. If any question regarding this lecture, you can contact. Thank you very much.